toxic masculinity.
All racism is white supremacy.
Yeah, this is a very weird story. So I thought I'd end on a lighter note. This is an article that was written on some kind of website called The Conversation. I found this. And who is it that wrote this? I don't even know. I can't find the name of the... Oh, here we go. Joel Abrams has written this article. Or is it Jennifer Ho? Okay, I don't know who wrote it. Maybe it's Jennifer Ho. It says the author is Jennifer Ho. Okay. So there's an actor who's also a stand-up comedian. He was in you don't know who I'm talking about, but he was in the movie The Hangover. You guys all know who I'm talking about. And he has a whole series of jokes about Asian women with the last name Ho, because his wife.
This tiny guy.
He's kind of tiny, yeah. He's like, yeah, I can say like, get my breakfast, Ho, and all this kind of stuff. It's a pretty funny bit. Anyway, so
Is Ken Jong?
Ken Jeong. Hey, that guy's pretty funny. Okay, so it says here, she writes here, amid the disturbing rise in attacks on Asian Americans since March 2020 is a troubling category of these assaults. Black people who are also attacking Asian Americans. What do you mean who are also attacking Asian Americans? Black people who are attacking Asian Americans. I don't know where the also comes in. She writes, white people are the main perpetrators of anti-Asian racism. That's actually not true. This is really weird that she writes this. But she has this link here, and I clicked on the link, and it takes you to an NPR podcast in which a woman claims that she contacted somebody from, I think it was the University of Michigan, and she said this researcher at University of Michigan had done a study, and that she'd found that 90% of the attacks on Asians in 2020 were white people. But there's no citation of any kind of research paper, and she doesn't name the person that she contacted at University of Michigan. So there's no way to verify what she said was true. It just seems like something that a random person said on a podcast. And if you look at it online, if you look for 90% of Asian attacks are white people, it all refers to this one podcast. It's the most BS citing ever. It's just absolutely not true. It's just a complete lie that everybody keeps citing this one lie. It is absolutely not true that the main perpetrators of anti-Asian racism are white. It's just not true. But in February of 2021, a black person pushed an elderly Asian man to the ground in San Francisco. The man later died from his injuries. In another video from New York City on March 29th, 2021, a black person pushes and beats an Asian American woman on the sidewalk in front of a doorway while onlookers observe the attack and then close the door on the woman without intervening or providing aid. Well, not only that, but like every single video you see of an Asian attack, it's always a black person. Like, what are they talking? It's never white people. I've never seen a video. I saw one video of a white guy kind of vaguely attack an Asian woman, and they were clearly mentally handicapped. And that's the only video I've ever seen of a white person.
Well, that shooting in the massage salon.
Yeah, but he killed white people too, and I think a Hispanic guy, I think as well. That guy had a sex addiction. But they always refer to that. You're 100% right. That's what they refer to as
there would be one case of white guy attacking Asian.
Yeah.
And the rest of it would be black people attacking Asian. They will still refer to this story
as white. But the thing is, like that guy in particular, he had like a sex addiction problem. He was trying to get rid of his sex addiction problem, and these are places where he was able to buy sex. I mean, they're like, what do you call them? Brothels. So he was killing the prostitutes at these brothels. He wasn't trying to kill Asians. He wasn't racist. I mean, there was no indication of that whatsoever. But that's what they keep using as the example. It's ridiculous. Let's see here. As the current president of the Association for Asian American Studies and as an ethnic studies and critical race studies professor who specializes in Asian American culture, I want to address the climate of anti-Asian racism I was seeing at the start of the pandemic. So in April 2020, I created a PowerPoint slide deck about anti-Asian racism with my employer, the University of Colorado Boulder, which her employer turned into a website. That led to approximately 50 interviews. So she's talking about how she interviewed these people, and some of them are talking about how like white people said something that they didn't like, and they assumed that was racist or something like that. Now here we go here. It isn't just white people. White supremacy is an ideology, a pattern of values and beliefs that are ingrained in nearly every system and institution in the United States. It's a belief that to be white is to be human. What does that even link to? I didn't click on that before. And invested with inalienable universal rights. And that to be not white means that you are less than human. That's really not true of anyone I've ever met ever. I've never met anyone who said that if you're not white, you are less than human. I've never met anyone who said that. I've never met anyone who's suggested anything like that. This is one of those bizarre myths that somebody's like, I don't like your group, so I'm going to push thoughts that I think you probably have onto you, despite the fact that there's no evidence that you thought them. You're a white person, so you must be bad, and therefore I'm going to tell everybody that you're thinking these horrible things that maybe you're not actually thinking, but I'm going to tell everybody you're thinking them anyway. This is just pure racism, ladies and gentlemen. This is pure disgusting racism. She says that white people think of non-white people as a disposable objects for others to use, for others to abuse and misuse. Complete lie. I mean, you can't get more racist than this. You really can't get more racist than this. The dehumanization of Asian people by U.S. society is driven by white supremacy and not by any black person who may or may not hate Asians. What the hell? This is completely like the most convoluted idea I've ever heard in my life. During the pandemic, yellow peril rhetoric that blamed China for COVID-19 led to a 150% rise in anti-Asian harassment. Incidents reported to police in 2020. In particular, East Asian Americans or anyone who appeared to be of East Asian heritage or descent became targets of the misplaced anger of people blaming Chinese people, blah, 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 blah. A fear of disease. White supremacy is the root of racism. As the root of racism, can be seen in the Latino man in Texas stabbing a Burmese family. Yes, white supremacy is the cause of a Latino man in Texas stabbing a Burmese family. That makes so much sense. She writes, in March 2020, claiming he did so because they were Chinese and bringing the coronavirus to the U.S. Though the suspect may have mental health problems, his belief that his family, that this family posed a threat is driven by the white supremacist idea of Chinese people being to blame for COVID-19. Nobody has ever blamed Chinese people, generally, for COVID-19.
I think there is some.
What are you talking about? Not publicly. I've never heard of anybody.
No, not publicly.
I mean, I'm sure privately there are some people who do that. Certainly the people who are trying to punch out random Asian people and saying, go back home to China, get your diseased self out of here, whatever. Certainly those people think that, but they're... that's a world that's completely removed from, Trumpism or conservatism or even white supremacy. I don't even know what white supremacists are even saying about this. I've never heard from a white supremacist talking about the coronavirus or about Chinese people. It's always leftists telling us what white supremacists think. I've never heard a white supremacist interviewed on this. I don't even know. I don't know. But that's what they're telling us. It's all white supremacists. Let's see here. The suspect may... Okay, I read that. The same rhetoric of blaming anyone perceived to be Chinese for COVID-19 and attacking them has been found in countless reports of harassment, including one by a Vietnamese woman who said she was spat on by a white man as she tried to go to the grocery store. 4 days later, video footage showed a 76-year-old Chinese woman who was punched in the face by a 39-year-old white man. So, I mean, I'm sure there probably are white people who have attacked Asians in 2020. I'm sure that's happened. And that's probably the only two incidents. You get 100 incidents of black people beating up Asians, killing them. You get a couple of instances of some white people doing some bad stuff, and this is the story that we get. And then, of course, they go on to say, on the same day, a white man killed 8 people, including 6 Asian women in Atlanta, right? And they, of course, focus on the Asian women. Of course, just so happens that was the percentage of women that were prostitutes in these places, right? I don't know if all the white women there were prostitutes or if all the Asians were prostitutes, but they worked in these places that this guy thought was some kind of a brothel. Maybe they were brothels. I don't know. I haven't got an update on that. I haven't heard about that since. Stories of individual harassment and violence perpetrated against Asian Americans by white assailants don't always get the same attention as the viral videos of black aggression towards Asians. Yeah, because they don't exist. There just aren't any videos of it. I mean, she said there's a couple of videos up here. I haven't seen them. But I assume that she's telling us the truth, that those do exist. But, there's tons of videos of black people hurting Asians. And sometimes they're murdering them. So, yeah, it's probably the severity of it. That's the problem. That's the reason why we're seeing those videos. But underlying all these incidents is white supremacy, just as white supremacy is responsible for Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's kneeling on George Floyd's neck. No, it isn't. For over 8 minutes, white supremacy made Floyd into a black male threat rather than a human being. No, it didn't. They treated him very well up until the point he was like trying to slither out of custody and escape. Understanding the depth and reach of this ideology of racism can be challenging, but doing so brings each person and the nation as a whole closer to addressing systemic inequality. It's not black people whom Asian Americans need to fear. It's white supremacy. God, this is just the most, like, even talking about this is ridiculous. Talking about this is ridiculous. This woman, Jennifer Ho, is such an idiot, and her ideology is so completely crazy and convoluted that it's not even really worth mentioning. I mean, I feel stupid talking about it, but this is a real human being who really believes the crap that she's telling us. I mean, this is the woman. This is her story. She's on this webpage called The Conversation. She's written 2 articles. She's from Boulder, Colorado. She's an absolute moron. This is the weirdest thing. She's a professor in the Department of Ethnic Studies. Why would anyone hire such a racist? Just an absolute disgusting racist. Anyway, it's a kind of funny story. I probably shouldn't have taken so much time on it. It's a funny story, but it's absolutely ridiculous. If your black person beats up an Asian person or kills them, it's because of white supremacy. The woman's just completely crazy. I don't think all these black people beating up Asians are big-time Trump supporters and are like listening to what he says. And like all the Trump supporters I know, they don't blame Asians. In fact, a lot of Asians I know are Trump supporters. Some of my best friends are Asian Trump supporters. Are they white supremacists as well? I mean, come on. All right. I'm sorry that took so long, but I thought it was kind of funny and ridiculous and fun to talk about. But that's the end of that. We are done with the news. Valeria, do we have any super chats to read? Do we want to talk to our people?
4 super chats. First one from Patron Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
In the end times good. What? In the end times good will be bad and bad will be good.
Yeah, that's from like Revelations.
Now cops are bad and criminals are prey. Spoiled, lazy children are taking over our country.
Right. Yeah, they say day is night, night is day. Everything gets flipped around. Yeah, that's what it seems like. It does. I've thought about this actually.
Unfortunately,
I've thought about how this kind of seems like end times. Daniel is like spot on. Everything is kind of toxic masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.